Hello, and welcome. My name is MiniBetrayal, and this is Factorio 1 per minute, episode lucky number 13. Now, if you have a look at the satellite count in the top left corner, you'll see I've done quite a bit of work since the last episode. At the end of episode 12, I think I was at 360 something, 368, 369 satellites. I'm now at 422. And I've just launched a rocket, so that will soon pop up to 423. There we go. The old base is now disconnected from the new base. I've put in a bit of circuit conditions here that means I can use this constant combinator to switch on and switch off the connection between the two that's currently switched off. Other work I have done, this episode, by the way, is not going to have a huge amount of work in it. It's basically going to be a recap of what I have done since the last episode, because I kind of got carried away. So yeah, you can see, if you look at the... Actually, what shall I do first? Okay, so we were running out of resources in a bad way in the old base. The old base is also currently switched off from this constant combinator, not requesting any resources. As such, the belts are empty. It's iron that we've run out of completely. But even copper doesn't have... Yeah, copper has 6,000 out of 1 million. So yeah, not doing great. So I've done a couple of things to combat that. Firstly, I've put in a few new outposts. So this iron outpost here is new. This iron outpost here is new. And I've put 2 new copper outposts in, stretching down towards the south here, and I've also done all the work to clear the biters. Now, at the moment, they're fine. This outpost here was running the most recently, so it still has a little bit of a pollution cloud around it, but at the moment it's fine. When the outposts are running, the pollution cloud still reaches the biters, so there is also a nice big defensive line around these ones. Okay. Also, in fact, let's head back up to the main base so I can show you this. Pax Omni, there we go. Nice long train journey. Okay, these outposts, I redesigned my outposts pretty much from scratch, taking into account the lessons I have learned. This here is a template of my new outpost. So what the trains do, they come in here. This is the bypass lane, same as it was before, and I have 3 waiting stations here. When we get up there, I'll show you all the circuit conditions that are used for it. Each outpost now has a station called Pax Outpost, and if I click on that, you'll see it's set to enable or disable, enabled only when the 0 signal is greater than 0, but it actually has no input. It has a red wire connection just so I can actually connect it to a phantom network, but it will never receive a 0. So it will always be switched off, unless I can remotely select the station and do that, and then the station will switch on. So that way, I can tell my passenger train to go to any outpost, just as a little bit of a quicker way to go around. So here we go. Over here, as I said, we've got 3... In fact, I'll start over here. So this constant combinator is not actually part of the design. This will be connected to the mining drills at any given outpost. So at the moment this is just simulating an outpost with 50 million in it. Okay, that goes to this one, which turns whatever it receives into an X signal. That just means I don't have to reconfigure these 4 here. Okay. This one here says, if X is greater than 0, output a Y. If it is greater than 500,000, output a Y. If it is greater than 1 million, output a Y. If it is greater than 5 million, output a Y. So, Y is the number of trains that this station can handle. So that way, as the outpost slowly drops down in the number of resources it has. The number of trains it caters for will also automatically drop down. That should help avoid the problem I was having earlier, where you had an outpost that was dying. It didn't have much left in the way of resources, but it was still requesting like 3 trains to go there. So those trains won't have to wait around for too long. They can then go off and find other outposts. The requester chests, they are requesting basically everything that is there. So again, I don't have to reconfigure these for every outpost. They will automatically decide their requests based on what is available. The only thing I have to be careful for in situations like that is where there are like these dual outposts. You can see here I've had to be very careful to avoid this coal so that this is not requesting any coal, because that can mess up the system. Once it dies down, I will have to revisit this outpost and be a little bit more clever about how I position my mining drills and how I set things up, just to avoid getting coal in the wrong place. Okay, so those Y signals, they come over to this station. So if Y is greater than 0, then it will send a signal. If Y is greater than 0, then it will enable the station. That means if there is nothing available, this station will turn off, and that's the last one to go. These two, this one is okay, so the Y comes in, it comes in over here and goes to this one. So if Y is less than 4, i.e. if we can cater for only 3, 2 or 1 trains, it will output a V, which comes to the station here. And if V equals 0, then the train is on. If it's greater than 0, then that station will turn off. So if we can no longer cater for 4 trains, this station will turn off. This one takes the output train ID signal and just turns it into a single T. This one, which one is it? These two here, this is my RS latch. So as soon as a train comes in here, it will disable the station. This one, well, as soon as it comes in here, it will remember that there's a train here. This one then turns that into a V to then disable the station. That one's the one that says whether or not the station should be disabled at all. This one here is the... Oh, thank you, autosave. I've still got that set to 5 minutes from when I was... from when I was biter killing. Let's put that back up to 20. Thank you. Back, resume. Yes, this last signal here is the reset signal from this rail signal back here. So as soon as this turns green again, i.e. the station is clear, that will reset the latch and then enable the station again if applicable. This one here is exactly the same. The only difference is that Y is less than 3. Now this one here is a little bit different. This one, if Y is less than 1, or equivalent to if Y is equal to 0, then the station will be disabled automatically. The reason is, if I disable this station when Y is equal to 1, then all the trains that want to go to a waiting station first, there'll be no available waiting stations here. So that's what these extra 3 are for. So if Y equals 1, that outputs a Z. If red is greater than 0, so i.e. if this one has a train in it, and Y equals 1, then Z equals 2, and then that will disable the station here. So that way it will still let trains come in, and then as soon as this one has the train in it, it will go off and then come down into this one here. actually that Z signal, sorry, comes from this signal up here, which is sort of hidden by the station itself. So if Y is equal to 1 and there is a train in this block here, so if there is a train at this station, then disable the waiting station. Hopefully that makes sense. But yes, all the new outposts are copies of that, with their passenger station. The only difference is that I've had to rename them Outpost Iron and Waiting Iron. To help speed things up, all of the mining drills, of course they're connected to the network as well. This one has 91 million available iron, and they're all sped up as fast as they can. Now that 91 million available iron is a little bit misleading, because the areas of these drills overlap. If I zoom out, you can see here there's actually only 39 million available, so that number will drop about 3 times more quickly than you would expect. So yes, if any developer ends up watching this, I guess, maybe we can make it so that it can tell if it's counting overlapped ores, because that way you don't have to space them out so they're not overlapped and stuff like that. Anyway, so that's one thing I've done. I have also put in this little station. So one thing I was finding is that, at least before I put in the new outposts, while trains were just running around the network, some of my outposts were dying and then switching off as expected. So this copper is dead, this iron is dead down here. I've already started clearing that one out. This iron up here is dead, and it's also taken all the resources from over here as well. It was a really old iron outpost. So that means we had more trains than we had waiting stations. So if all the waiting stations were full, the train would then suddenly have nowhere to go. Nowhere at all. So it would just stop in the middle of the tracks. So what this does, over here we have an oil outpost, a waiting copper, a waiting stone, a waiting iron, a waiting uranium. There is an Omni in station here as well, just so if all the stations are disabled, then there's absolutely no station for it to go to. It will then just go directly to the next station, which I don't want to happen. It's better for it to just stop in cases like that. So what this will do, it will stop the trains from skipping out the station and moving on to the next one, even though they can never get here. This one here is just called block, and then over here we have a segment of rails full of, these are all individual trains set to manual and stopped, and these are a bunch of rail signals hidden behind them, which are all set with a circuit signal to red. The reason for this, I had a quick look at the Factorio wiki and exactly how trains do their pathing. That uses something called an A-star algorithm to find the closest available station, but then it will put like penalties. So for example, let's see, have I got rails on me? I've got a few rails on me. So let's get a little example here. Ooh, that's a bit wibbly. Okay, so let's say we have 2 train stations. Do I have any train stations on me? Yes, I do. So we've got one. Let's put it on the right side. Let's put one there and one there. And then if we have a train, I don't have a train. I'm the train, choo-choo. Let's say I want to go to one of these stations, both of which have the same name, Splitting M Nut. Obviously, I will go to the closest one. But I believe it's calculated on like just the number of rail segments. So this will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. This is 12 or something, and that's about twice, 3 times with the bends, 3 times as far away. So let's say this is 10 and that's 30. Obviously it'll go to the one with 10. But there are certain things you can do which will sort of manually increase the number of rail segments it counts. So the highest ones I found were if there is a rail signal set to red by a circuit network, it will add 1,000 to that number. So in this case, this will be 1,010, that will be 30, and the train will come down to this station. If there is a train stopped and set to manual with no passenger in it, it will add 7,000 to the number. And if there is a station in the way which is not one that it wants to go to, it will add like another 1,000, another 500 to it, something like that. So that was my logic up here. This top line here means that all the trains can theoretically get to one of these stations, but with all of this added to it, unless I end up with a station like out here or something, these will always be the absolute last trains they want to go to, last train stations they want to go to. So they will always go to an outpost first, and they will only come up here if everything else is closed. And then they'll never actually get to those stations because they will come into this queuing system here, and they can never actually get here because there's trains stopped. So this rail signal is red, that one's blue because they can get back out into the rail network but they can't go further, and then these are rail signals here. So they will just wait here until there is another available waiting station for them to go to. Moving on. This is the Omni Station. I have done a bit of work here. You can see it's actually a bit bigger. So I used to have 1 train head followed by 3 train wagons. Now most of my trains are still like that, but the iron and the copper, because I need so much of that, I still have a couple of the old length trains. But if I come up towards the top, firstly, if you look at the minimap, you can see that I've added on several more stations. I don't know, I haven't actually added the wagons on, so that's something I'll have to do this episode. Essentially what I have done is I have set things up so this station can cater for both 1 3 trains and 2 6 trains. It will just about fit in here, the 2 6. We have 2 things that load up with the fuel. The first wagon of each train, therefore, has had to be filtered, so it won't accept coal. Have I done that for... Yeah, I've even filtered the coal one itself. But by the time it gets back here, it should be full anyway. One thing I forgot to mention about the outposts, I think, is that the outpost iron... or the actual loading station itself, it will also send the signals it receives to the train. So you can see it's currently receiving 3Y and 4.5 million iron from this little bit here. This is a relatively small outpost. As part of the condition for how long a train waits at the outpost, I want to say wait until full cargo inventory, or y equals 0. That way, if it is waiting at the outpost and then it runs out, it's not going to wait here indefinitely. It will then head back with whatever it happens to have at the time. Okay? So yeah. So I'll have to edit the copper and the iron trains just to make them a bit longer. That way, we should be bringing in close to twice, well, we'll be bringing in iron and copper close to twice as fast as we were. Okay, so let me see. Is there anything else major I need to mention? Yeah, so I've edited these stations up here, so they're the same, the copper and the iron ones. The uranium and stone I'm just leaving as they were. Where's the stone ones? There and there. Oh, no, there and there, rather. Oil remains the same. Yeah, I don't think there's anything else to mention at the moment. Next thing. I mentioned at the end of the last episode, I was humming and hawing about how I would get the rocket fuel, or in fact it's not, it is rocketry fuel out. It's the nuclear fuel from the bus to the trains. So what I've done is I've put in, well, I will have put in a splitter here which prioritizes the bus. So at least one per minute will be going towards the bus. Anything else will get loaded into this train here, which will wait there until it's full. In fact, I should put a timing condition on that as well, I think. Yeah, I need to have a think about the conditions of this, otherwise I'll overload the buffer in my loading station with nuclear fuel. But essentially this comes to rocketry fuel out, which is where it currently is, and goes to Omni fuel in. So if I come back to my Omni station, just above my pack station here I have Omni fuel in, which will load it with actual fuel. I haven't set up any unloading thing there yet, so that is another thing to do this episode. Right. Okay, so let's get started on a little bit of actual work. I'll start off by increasing the lengths of my trains and then setting them off. Turns out I severely underestimated the number of wagons I was going to need. Okay, so there we go. All the trains are lengthened, or all the iron and copper trains are lengthened and fueled. So I'll just have a quick check to make sure that my train counting system is complete. Yep, so this is correct. We now have 13 iron trains and 10 copper trains. Now you'll see that it looks here as though we have 2 copper and all of our iron trains away. That's just because none of our iron trains actually have anything in them, therefore they're not actually being counted as iron trains, and then these 2 copper trains at the top are the same, so they don't count towards being iron copper trains. However, usually when they come in they will have at least one of the relevant resource in them, and then they will be counted. So let's switch this on and see what breaks. On. There is a slight problem here, because, as I said, the empty trains aren't being counted as iron or copper trains. They're not being sent away, so I will have to manually send these to their relevant stations. So you can go to waiting copper, you can go to waiting copper. Okay, so we should be able to see things in action over here. So this particular station, just due to how much iron is there, this last station here will always be unavailable. So this, I believe, should be our closest iron outpost. So we've got 1 fill up, 2 fill up, and then this second one we'll go find a different, or the third one I guess, we'll go find a different station. Excellent, that's working. So So this iron outpost here is also receiving some attention. Oh, each of these outposts also has 1,000 logistic spots in them. Okay, we're getting some action down here at this copper outpost, where are the other trains going for copper. There's a tiny bit left up here, just one station's worth, I think. What are we? Yeah, we're only outputting the one Y signal there. Ah, we have a backup. Right. Okay, that means I need a chain signal somewhere. Let's go fix that. This can be a test of our new... so if we send it to go... well, in fact, I need to turn the station on first. So if I turn on... not that one. This one. If I turn on PAX Outpost, and then I can go to PAX Outpost. Okay, so who screwed everything up? Whose fault? Your fault. Okay, and to fix this, I'll bump you back to there, and then turn you back on. No, why won't you go that way? You can go that way. I know there's a loop around there. Yeah, fine. Let's make you go this way. There we go. Now go. I'm also going to make you a chain, just because it feels safer. Again, a lot of the issues we're having here are because we're sent off just about all of the trains at once, so even this 2-lane system isn't really coping with it. Any action down at this outpost? No. They're content to use this one for now. Oh, we've got a copper train going north. Looks like we'll get to see the Y=1 case working. So what should happen is, the train should come in to waiting, it should stop there for a second. Yeah, and then it should move on. And then it should remain red until this train has been filled. Okay, and then it should go back to white. There we go, that works. Okay, I've also made a very slight change to how the rails in this area work, just to hopefully help ease some congestion. Okay, so that appears to be working. While that's going on, let's go and have a look at the rocketry setup, or the nuclear fuel. Okay, so what we're going to do for the rocket, I have got some passive provider chests here, so that way, even though these might have stuff in them, because they're not the active provider chests, they are not going to send anything to the buffer system, and the only thing that will be requesting what's in them is the actual requested chests. Okay, so that should now work, actually. If we go to this one here, let's just double check it. Rocketry until full, Omni until empty, and 5 seconds have passed, just to make sure it itself has been fueled. Now I am going to have to hop out there, just because, let's see, what's the closest station? Closest station is modules. PAX modules, go. Yeah, just because of this missing belt, nothing can actually go there at the moment. Okay, here we are. Bonk. Okay. Now we should just be able to set that to... in fact, it's already on automatic. Well, we'll be waiting here a while, so let's head back to the Omni Station. Oh, we have our first rocket fuel shipment coming in. I was just fiddling around with this junction again, trying to ease the congestion. Let's see, how much have we got? We have 40 in the system. Let's wait for another shipment, I think. And it's not rocket fuel either, it's nuclear fuel. Okay, I think that's as much as I can ease congestion. Let's see, how are we doing? Okay, we've got 60% copper, 50% iron. Going well. Alright, so while we are waiting for the nuclear fuel, what we'll do... where am I? Over here. We do have a couple of old outposts that need to be cleaned up, so let's start off with this copper one over here. Let's see if I enable that station and then go to Pax Outpost. And then let's clean this up. There was more copper in there than I thought there was. Okay, so I'm going to leave the station and the radar here. The radar just so I can see what's going on. The station so I can later pop back with a train. I'll commandeer one of the copper trains and we'll go and collect that copper. What's the next station? I think it was this one down here. That's right. So let's turn that on and go. Okay, that's gone. Next station is this one. Okay, that's all cleared up. Let's head back to Omni. Okay, we are nearly there. We are at, what's that, 80%? Let's have a look at the actual numbers. Yeah, 80% of both iron and copper, and everything else is in the green. So that's good. I do believe the system is working. How much have we got in the way? We now have 80 rocket fuel. And how's the next shipment coming? I keep saying rocket fuel, it's nuclear fuel. Okay, what's that? Another couple of minutes away? So let's wait for that third shipment of rocket fuel. Nuclear fuel. And here it comes. Alrighty then. Okay, so let's get out of the train, head up here, and where is it? This one here. So, no more coal please. Let's instead get our trains fueled with, I'll put in 3 rocket fuel. Now that will almost instantly take up everything. And I guess I will go and get rid of the coal. Okay, and we are back where we need to be. We have 1 million copper and 1 million iron ore. Everything is looking nice up here. Oh, that's quite loud with all the bots going to sleep. Okay, so we've still got a few copper trains out and a few iron trains. Let's see if we can find them. Oh, what's that just headed out? That's an iron train. That must have been the last iron train to load. Or to unload, rather. Got a little bit going on at this station. That station's empty. Got a copper train returning from this one with a couple more queued up ready to go in. Nothing going on at this station down here. Although it looks as though it has been active recently. A little bit of pollution hanging around. Yeah, this pollution's encroaching on this biter base over here, so I expect an attack shortly. This one, yeah, coming up here, so I'm probably going to get some attacks from the north, so maybe I should extend this defense line around to this side as well. Let's get rid of that so I can see what's going on. Train's starting to queue up again, that's good. Now, I've switched out all of the copper that was in these chests. I have not, however, emptied the trains of coal. They will eventually filter through and gather up the nuclear fuel as they come. So next episode we will get to work on the science, which is the next thing to come on the bus, so our 7 sciences and our labs as well for that matter. The one other thing that I was going to mention that I forgot, the other problem we had at the end of the last episode was a surplus of heavy oil. My solution for that was I plugged in this. This is a single chemical plant that cracks heavy oil into light oil. Now, based just on the numbers, if all of these are running full time, that does not give us enough heavy oil at the end of it. But with the circuit conditions here, so similar to how we've set the light oil cracking only if we have more light oil than petroleum. I've set this only if we have more heavy oil than light oil in our deep storage here. So at the moment it is running, and I've not had any issues since that's been set up. So we've got enough of petroleum. We're actually using quite a bit at the moment, but that's fine. Light oil and heavy oil are both fine. Lubricant is at the max. Sulfuric acid is fine. So now this is actually running. I think it's just a case of letting the base back up again. Now it's going to take an awfully long time because some things we're only making one per minute. But I'll keep an eye on it, make sure things remain running. Let's see, we've got that looks like about half a dozen trains out at the moment. 10 trains, okay, 9 trains. So yeah, I'll make sure it keeps working, and then we'll come back next episode to get in on the science. In the meantime, I will say thank you very much for watching, and I will see you again soon.